in joining us on our monthly VCM calls. It's really interesting and exciting, I think, this month because of just where we're at contextually and in the larger picture of things. So I think you're going to be hearing very interesting and intimate perspective from our panelists today. So I'm very excited about it. We often talk about what it's, for lack of a better term, what the fight after the fight was going to look like as the pandemic kind of moved through the system, and we are now here today preparing for what the pandemic is going to look like as the Delta variant has presented itself, as kind of political changes have, introduced themselves, and just the hard work that is taken upon by the people, the leaders that you're going to hear on the panel, from our teams in the field, from our partners. It's a very interesting time. It's a very stressful time. And with interesting and stressful times, overwhelming with risk. So I want to, again, as always, extend gratitude to our team members in our property management field and our case management field, and just extend a thank you. Keep doing what you're doing, and we appreciate it. We're really looking forward to the impact that it makes on our residents. And with that, I just want to quickly turn it over to Sierra, who's going to introduce extraordinary women that serve extraordinary women. So looking forward to it. Again, thank you very much for joining us at the Trust, all of you panelists and leaders. And again, very excited about what you're going to share with us. I can't imagine what you're facing, but I'm looking forward to learning from all of you. So appreciate it. Sierra?
Hello and welcome. So I get the pleasure to introduce, as Lee said, some pretty amazing women. So I'm very happy to have all of you guys here today. I'm going to give brief introductions of everyone, and then we're going to roll into some Q&A so that you guys can all see how amazing they are. Let's start with Amy. So Amy Turk is the Chief Executive Officer of Downtown Women's Center. She has held leadership position in the field of social work and homelessness since 2001. Before joining DWC, she spent 7 years as a director of Daybreak, a project of the OPCC, now the People's Concern. Ms. Turk was joined DWC in 2013 as a Chief Programs Officer, responsible for administering DWC's programs, including permanent supportive housing, health and wellness, workforce development, and DWC's social enterprise, MADE, also known as MADE, by DWC. In 2018, she was named DWC's Chief Innovation Officer and provided leadership in developing and implementing new organizational projects that foster vital relationships with community partners and resulted in doubling the number of supportive housing units available to homeless women in LA County. Welcome, Amy. Dr. Alisa Orduna is a practitioner, policy analyst, qualitative researcher, and thought leader in the urban community development field. She has been working on the cutting edge of policy formation and change management in neighborhood development and homeless services in Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and Santa Monica, California for the past 25 years in the nonprofit and public sectors. Recently, she launched Florence Elise Advancement Network, LLC, FAAN, I love these acronyms, by the way, to support leaders of color in the community development field. She is a graduate of Xavier University of Louisiana and the University of Pittsburgh. Welcome, Dr. Alisa. Daniella Urbina is the Housing and Homeless Deputy for Los Angeles County Supervisor Hilda Solis. Previously, she served as a senior manager for reentry supportive services at the Los Angeles County Office of Diversion and Reentry. Daniella began her career in public service working at Senator Barbara Boxer's re-election campaign in 2010 and subsequently served in the Senator's Washington office. She also worked as an organizer for President Obama's 2012 campaign and Emily's List to support women running for office. Daniella holds a BA in government from Harvard University and an MPA in economic and political development from Columbia University of International Public Affairs. Adelene Bertha experienced homelessness from the age of 16. Currently, she is a peer support specialist at Downtown Women's Center, DWC, while simultaneously pursuing a bachelor's degree in psychology. Adelene's job duties at DWC include organizing, coordinating events, assisting peers in setting their goals, learning and practicing new skills, helping them monitor their progress, supporting them in advocating for themselves and obtaining services, and implementing the Housing First model. She loves her job and states that the best part about what she does is being able to connect with people in Skid Row community and reaching their fullest potential, something I also feel deeply about. All right, let's get started. Again, thank you guys, everyone, for joining us. So Amy, the Housing Justice Program launched in 2010 with the mission to house 100 unhoused women living in Skid Row who have experienced long-term homelessness and have been historically underserved by traditional housing programs. Can you share more about this program and the progress you've made?
Thanks for having us on this conversation, Sierra. It's nice to see you and to be among Skid Row Housing Trust community with these fantastic panelists. The Housing Justice Program was developed as an answer to the recommendations of the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority Ad Hoc Committee on Women and Ad Hoc Committee on Black People Experiencing Homelessness. And we looked at, in those years when those committees were meeting, we looked at data and analyzed where there were some outliers. One thing that was, somewhat positive is that Black women in particular were finding permanent housing after experiencing housing at the proportion or at the rate that they were experiencing homelessness. So there weren't any disproportionalities seen in finding the permanent housing. Where it really became concerning, not that it's still concerning of how many people are experiencing homelessness, don't get me wrong, but where we saw some glaring concerns in numbers was how quickly they were leaving that permanent housing, mostly under pretty negative and stressful and traumatic situations. So we wanted to build a model that increases the housing retention piece. And we have been informed the whole way by people with lived experience, and you're about to hear how important the voice of folks like Adelene are in this process. And our model integrates phased models of case management, psychotherapy, intersectional trauma recovery, employment services, and financial wellness. And to provide a range of housing options based on these needs, women are served in two different housing types. One is through supportive housing for individuals who need the services that are on site, and we're really thankful for our partnership with Skid Row Housing Trust and SRO, who have been the primary places that the women have moved into. Or what's called rapid rehousing for those who can live without the proximity of services in that same building. And because in the Skid Row community, 60% of the women who are unhoused are Black. So this program has really been tailored to that population and exclusively geared towards unhoused women in the Skid Row community. And today I'm pleased to share that we have now served 126 women, 95% have maintained their housing, and 73 have either gained or in active steps towards employment, and 40 have received one-on-one psychotherapy. So in addition to this direct service model, other aspects of the Housing Justice Program include formal evaluation, training to community partners, and the development of trauma-informed community, which Alisa can speak to her work around that. And before I give over my microphone, I just want to give credit to Kirkpatrick Tyler in the LA City Mayor's Office who championed this, and to our council member DeLeon for recently refunding the program. So we have a little more ramp time to deepen our results with the women that we're serving. And of course, alongside Kirkpatrick and the mayor's office is Mayor Garcetti as well.
Those are some pretty firsts. All right, Dr. Alisa, you've worked in the nonprofit and public sectors for homeless policy and system design for the past 25 years, and you're a consultant on this program. Can you talk about your professional background and how you led to consult on the Housing Justice Program?
Of course. Well, first I have to say, anytime Amy Turk reaches out and says, can you get involved? You can't say no. So was honored to be a part of it. And what in particular made this project stand out and what made me say yes was that bridge to people with lived experience and lived expertise and really wanting to find those pathways for engagement. And it reminded me when I saw the question and thought about even this project. Early on, when I was in college, I had an opportunity to go to Jamaica for study abroad and worked with a community that was similar to Skid Row in downtown Kingston and worked with a group of young men around. These are men that were at risk. There is extreme violence in this community, deep poverty that we do see sadly in the United States, but not on the same scale. And we developed a kind of life-affirming program that's centered on writing to get them to tell their stories and to be courageous enough to dream for the future when so many of their peers weren't making it past a certain age. And from that, we developed an environmental survey that really identified the needs of the community and transferring that experience earlier on to Skid Row and working with the community, working with Adelene in her previous role and others in the development of the Skid Row Refresh Spot, which is now grown to be a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week expanded personal space for restrooms and showers. And it really was based on community design. The community designed everything from the providers to peer support specialists, who was hired, security, music, colors, like all of the things that have made that program so successful. So really those two experiences that I tried to bring to the Housing Justice Program and had the opportunity to work with women. We created a Women's Policy Fellowship program, and it was a program that we're teaching the skills of proposal writing and project design. And to the point where the women could have chose any project that they wanted to for their kind of graduation, and they chose to develop the Skid Row Summer Retreat for other women that were currently housed or unhoused on Skid Row. So it was this amazing richness that when we create these pathways, communities often know what they want. They just lack the resource or access to resources to be able to fulfill that to make it happen. So those were the experiences that led me to this, and I'm glad to be a part of the project.
Great. So Daniella, Supervisor Solis has been tirelessly campaigning for greater recognition and resources for women experiencing homelessness. As the Housing and Homeless Deputy for Supervisor Solis, what stood out about the program and why was it important to fund?
Yeah, and I just want to apologize for having my mask on. I do share an office with someone, so just trying to be safe. I think the most important thing for us is just the passion and sort of the knowledge that the Downtown Women's Center has around supporting women. And that includes women with family, but also unaccompanied women who so often are not provided resources, right? Or just are under-resourced because they're not recognized as a separate group of people experiencing homelessness. And so for us, this central piece of housing justice and equity and making sure that we are distributing resources to communities that have been historically impacted by systemic racism and everything else that has sort of created this situation of homelessness that we are in. We've seen over the course of the pandemic just how much it has impacted women, not just financially, but in terms of domestic violence, and the number of women who have shown up at the doorsteps of the Downtown Women's Center and other providers that support women have just increased over the last year and a half. And so, we're just so excited for the Downtown Women's Center's efforts and are really committed to putting forth the support that is needed to make sure that we can get as many women off the streets and into safe and permanent housing as possible. And so, with that, I think, the supervisor had a motion with Supervisor Mitchell to just sort of leverage the work of the Downtown Women's Center earlier this year and try to get all of the women on Skid Row housed, 655 women. And there really is no better partner than the Downtown Women's Center to do that. I mean, they drafted a plan, they sort of put together the logistics around it, showed us exactly what we needed, and it was just sort of a no-brainer to support this partner that has really been a leader on this issue.
That's fantastic, and I see a real theme that it's women helping women, and I love seeing that. Having grown up in this industry that has been so male-dominated over the years, and I know you're all shaking your heads the same. It's nice to see that it's really women helping women, and then reaching back and bringing people upward is really, I think, the key of everything that all of you guys are saying so far. It's just really inspiring. I'm so glad that you guys did find money and were able to help additionally support this program even further. So Adelene, lived experience was one of a large factor in piecing the details of this program together. As someone with lived experience, what are your recommendations you found necessary?
Well, first, let me say thank you for having me. I feel really honored. It gives me chills seeing all these women together, and it feels like amazing knowing that my lived experience can impact others. Some recommendations that I found necessary was building on trustworthiness. That was incorporated within this project, and I feel like that was so important because getting to know your case manager and getting to know a wraparound team is a long and ongoing process. And the support system at every level, especially when it comes to cultural norms and taking in consideration people's backgrounds, I felt like that was really put together nicely within this project because I've been to a lot of I've been homeless since 16 years old. I started off in Skid Row, and I've gotten services in many different levels in many different organizations. And I just love seeing that building on trustworthiness is incorporated. Also self-advocacy with money management. Every day we are all exposed to opportunities that will help us advocate for our rights as well as learn our responsibilities in each situation, and reflect on what is right for them as related to money. There's a balance in all things, and in order to move forward with how we spend our money, we need to have a way to make decisions and to prioritize our spending. As someone who experienced chronic homeless for a very long time, I empathized with a lot of what the women were talking about when it came to money management, and being able to promote self-advocacy and also advocacy when it comes to speaking up when you're working a 9-to-5 versus getting SSI every month. I always tell the participants that I work with, my peers, there's an overall difference between money and funds. Life is changing every day, and our relationship with money is no exception. Look at COVID pandemic came out of nowhere, and I always tell them you gotta have a checkings and you have to have a savings. I learned that at a very young age and how important it was for me to get off the streets and what money management meant to me. And so when I saw that incorporated in the project, I was like, you know what, I don't know, it just makes me like my whole body just gets super happy when I hear a participant say, hey, I saved $500. I'm like, okay, like that's a huge milestone, being able to go from zero to nothing, and then also having that money available in case another, knock on wood, pandemic or anything happens. And then last but not least, peer support. Incorporating peer support through each phase of the participants' housing and beyond, having that opportunity and being there for the participants has been something that has not only affected them but affected me, because I always say, like, I don't know how impactful my experience, my lived experience was until I was able to talk to someone who felt like I was their ally, like I was someone that they can relate to on a personal level. And I just got thirsty. Thank you.
Well, those are all super important things, and a lot of the things that you mentioned are really what makes permanent supportive housing successful as well. Having those wraparound services, having a case manager who is empathetic and has lived experience. I know that's something at the trust that we've pushed with our peer advocate program, and it's really important that when you're speaking with somebody, you have that trust factor, and you only get that with somebody that's walked in your shoes or understands what you've been through. So I applaud you also for working in the same field. It's not always easy to do. A lot of people will come out of trauma and then want to escape it and not want to be in it every day. I share similar in that I'm a single mom, and I also have had domestic violence in my background. And so I too wanted to be able to give back and to help others that were experiencing the same thing. So my applause goes to you. All right, Daniella, the supervisor often talks about county's Care First model, and Hilda Solis is Care First Village, a truly extraordinary of rapidly deployed housing solutions. How is work to further implement care in SD1 and replicate the success of care in First Village in the district and throughout the county? That was a long-winded question.
Sorry, I think I heard the question, but it kind of cut out a little bit. I don't know if that was just me. Was it just how we're working to replicate the Care First model across the county?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you. So yes, I'm so glad that you brought up the Care First Village. I was actually there this morning, and you know, it truly is something that the supervisor has sort of taken on, this idea of care first and jails last, of course, because we all know how deeply intertwined the justice system is with our homelessness system as well. And so right now the supervisor has a sort of restorative village master plan. It's sort of looking at the surrounding neighborhood, including the Chinatown area and the Chinatown community, LAC USC, the California Endowment. And we're trying to figure out how to leverage both county and city and maybe even some privately owned resources to continue expanding on the Care First Jail Last model and expanding on the success of the Care First Village. I think that you'll see that there's a lot of funding coming down from the state, from the federal government to build more housing and to provide more shelter for, you know, for women, of course, but really just to help us with our homelessness crisis overall. And there's a specific allocation in the American Rescue Plan that's really for survivors of domestic violence and trying to expand our DV shelter system, which we know is so there just isn't enough, right? There aren't enough shelters. There isn't enough support for survivors of domestic violence. And so I think you'll be seeing in the coming years, especially with the money that's coming down from the federal government and the state, more initiatives like the Care First Village, spearheaded by the supervisor, to really make sure that we are adequately funding and resourcing the needs of survivors of domestic violence, but also just women experiencing homelessness overall.
Great. Well, I'm excited to see that. Amy, what is your vision for the program to be scaled and expanded throughout the region?
I mean, I just love this program. When we would meet as a stakeholder committee throughout the first year of implementation, and we just kept reflecting on how this was like keeping us really motivated through COVID and such hard times, and the relationships and connections we were making. And I think that really drilled home the importance of building community and relationships and how that leads to better services and, you know, the ultimate goal of helping people stay housed where they want to stay housed and helping them build their wealth and take the steps they want to take next. So, you know, more deepening the work of a sense of belonging and community. We, in addition to Alisa, we worked with a group called Meaning Makers that did a series of workshops and built a learning circle around what we mean around trauma-informed care with service providers, and continuing to deepen that work so that our field really does understand what it means to provide trauma-informed services. And Danielle has mentioned the support of Supervisor Solis in using this housing justice program and combining it with additional resources to house the unhoused women in the Skid Row community. So, we're really thrilled that we have the housing justice side, the permanent housing side. That's amazing. And we still need more support for additional trauma-informed outreach in our community and short-term responses such as interim housing or additional hotels while we're looking for those permanent housing resources. So my vision is, in building out this program, that we, hit all the components that are needed to decrease homelessness among women in Skid Row, and that we do it with the sense of building community and belonging together.
Well, I love it. I look forward to seeing it through, because it's something that you've already done a really good job at, bringing this program forward, getting it extended, housing so many people and helping their lives. I just look forward to you being able to help and do more. So at this time, I'll open it up for questions. Do we have any questions that have come up through the chat?
Hi, Sierra. I have a couple of really great questions, actually. And the first one is from Sarah Thomas of United Way. And hang on one sec. And this is about Amy, your bill SB 678. She says it was held in the Senate Appropriations Committee today. This important bill would have made an impact on getting resources for unaccompanied women experiencing homelessness. We continually see bills like this that could help end this homelessness crisis and stop perpetuating the brokenness of our unjust systems, not make it through Sacramento. How can LA County push past the politics and get these bills passed?
What I think is amazing is that LA City Council and the County Board of Supervisors have passed a motion calling out this unique population of people experiencing homelessness as just that. And we know the strategy when we do that is that more resources come about, like the Housing Justice Program, and accountability to decrease homelessness. Now, we have a little fresh wound going on here with the state bill that unfortunately didn't get out of appropriations onto the assembly floor. We got it 8 of the 10 steps through. That took, honestly, years to get to that point. So we're just going to fight harder next time. It's a really good bill. We had an amazing champion in Senator Susan Rubio. And, we're women. We'll pick right back up and we'll fight harder next time.
We're all pulling for you, Amy. We love that bill, and we so admire all the work that you've done on it.
Yeah, thanks for supporting it.
And United Way is our chief question asker today. So there's also a question, Daniella, for you from Tommy Newman. And he's asking if we can count on Supervisor Solis's support for SB 679, since it would be a powerful tool to build more affordable housing and protections in LA County, and we can't afford to say no to important solutions.
Thank you, Tommy. The supervisor is supportive of the intention behind the bill, which is really to expand affordable housing in a mass scale across the region, really. And we know that is truly needed. We're still in discussions around the bill and sort of watching it in Sacramento and trying to see where it goes. So, we're looking forward to just sort of seeing how the conversation plays out and what happens from there.
Thanks for that. There are no other questions in the chat, but I, on a personal note, wanted to have a chance to say how thrilled I was that we had a chance to share DWC's Housing Justice Program with our community. I thoroughly admire the work that you've all done on this, and watched it in action, getting moved along and funded, and really admire the way that you've approached it. And I think that you have a real path forward to solving a problem and actually ending homelessness in Skid Row for women. And we're all cheering for you, and we're all so excited, and we're all so inspired. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jet, and everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.